Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm your host, Shana James. I'm really excited to be here today with Ken Page, who is a therapist and a podcaster, has written a book called Deeper Dating, and also hosts a platform for single people to meet based on these deeper dating concepts. And Ken, thank you so much for doing this work. And as I read your book, I just felt so much alignment with you, and I was so excited to have you here today. Because I love that you talk about these deeper principles, right? This new map in a way of love instead of the old map or the old paradigm where people are supposed to kind of puff up and be macho and, do it right and live up to some certain expectation. I really appreciate the authenticity that you bring to dating and to love.
Thank you. Thank you. And, it's just such an important time in history, and men and women and people of all gender identities, well, less people who are non-binary. There's a lot more freedom there, but men and women are taught so often this totally mixed message of you need to be free, you need to embody the traits of the best traits of both genders, of all genders, but you still need to be women, feminine, men, masculine, men, alpha male. You still need to be that. It's a completely mixed message. It's like, be yourself,
but don't.
But God forbid, don't let go of this or that. And we cannot hold those two messages at once. There needs to be primacy for one message. And the minute the message that has primacy is not who are you really and how can you share that, then you're screwed. You're going to hurt yourself. And
it's exhausting, first of all, right?
It's exhausting. It's exhausting.
And then it's so unsatisfying because you either end up with someone who's not really a fit for you, or you're putting on such a show that then you never actually get to be loved and appreciated or seen for who you are. It's just, it's a shit show, really.
It is a shit show. And then there's the concept of conservation of energy. We have just this body of energy. And if we're devoting a bunch of it towards suppressing ourselves, but like trying to puff up one piece, we will lose our magic. Our magic, all of the energy that comes from the magic of just being who you are will be gone. It will be flattened. And you will be more at risk for making bad choices because in the place where you're supposed to be, there'll be a vacuum.
Yes.
Nature abhors a vacuum. So when we do that to ourselves, when we don't kind of cherish and give primacy to our authenticity, it's an act of quiet violence against our being. And it's going to end up with us being in situations and relationships that are masochistic and unhealthy. So that's kind of what I call the deeper physics of dating that we don't get taught.
Yeah. And one of the things I really appreciated was your attractions of deprivation versus attractions of inspiration.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about those?
I would love to. Because I think it's so important. And I think if there's and I say this in my book too, that if there's one takeaway, one simple takeaway, and there are a few
Yeah.
that I think are really essential, that I guess that I'm going to say what the main ones are. Let me just list
Great.
them,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I
List them.
think they're
That sounds great.
really important. Okay.
Yeah.
So the first is this concept of authenticity. It's this concept that I call core gifts, which is the essence of who you are, is where your magic lies, where your power lies,
Mm-hmm.
where your sense of alignment lies. Creatures that don't have a backbone have to have an armor. And it's the
Interesting.
same, an exoskeleton or an
Yeah. Yeah.
endoskeleton. It's the same with us. If we don't have a true backbone, and that true backbone is, who am I really, and how can I share this in the
Mm-hmm.
world? That's the only healthy backbone. When we don't have that endoskeleton, we're going to create an exoskeleton, which is armoring, and that armoring is going to shut out love, and it's going to make us make wrong choices.
Yeah.
So this first stage of this journey is the discovery of your core gifts, which are the most tender, passionate, fierce, vulnerable parts of you. And they're the parts that we are hesitant to share.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about the core gift. I mean, as I listened, I got it, but it was a little bit, I could see it being a little confusing for someone to understand, wait, is my core gift, if it's something tender or vulnerable, how is that a core gift, right? How do you describe what a core gift actually is?
Yeah. And that's so important. And because it's counterintuitive. The places you feel weakest, the places you feel like you're not enough, underneath those places actually lie your deepest core gifts.
Yeah.
The places where you feel like you're too much for the world, underneath that lie your core gifts. They're the realest parts of you, and they're parts that have probably been shamed or misunderstood or taken advantage of or used or milked.
Right.
And it's kind of the great user's manual of life, is to be able to name those parts of yourself. And you can find them in some ways somewhat easily by asking yourself two questions. What fills my heart, and what hurts my heart? And when you go through life asking those questions and not minimizing your answers, but instead saying, how could this point to my core gifts? Then your life enriches in really, really powerful ways. And your search for love changes, and your intimate relationships change as well.
I'm just thinking about having a child. I know you have a couple. When I look at my kid and I see this crazy sense of humor, right? And this playfulness. And in some moments, it's a lot. And in some moments, it's overwhelming for me and sometimes for other people. But at the same time, I can see, right, there is a gift there. And so when I work with adult men and I help them start to see, what is unique about you actually is something that you want to put attention on and you want to share in the world. You don't want to hide that part of you, even if, right? So I'm just seeing these different pieces of how a young one can grow up to be an older one. And, my kid may not always feel like that sense of humor is welcomed, because there are moments, right, where I get overwhelmed. But at the same time, right, how we support people to re-find some of those parts that may have been shut down in the past.
Absolutely. Or over domesticated, because genius domesticated is genius lost. And, our core gifts are our genius. There are the places, I think of it I call it like shards of God inside us. They're things that are just too big to fit. That's the mark of a core gift, is often it feels like a curse. The very thing with your romantic partner that you feel the most kind of vulnerable or tender to reveal. And I don't mean specifics that are embarrassing from your personal history. I mean aspects of, the
who
way you live and who you are. Those are where your core gifts lie.
Wow.
And so it's very counterintuitive. Your deepest insecurities reveal your greatest gifts.
Yeah. And I remember you saying something about how, the old map of love, it was about being confident and kind of, especially for men, this machoism. And I can't remember how you described it now, if it was something around like a confidence in your authenticity, the shift. Do you remember that part?
Yeah. It is the way that I think about that is the big question is how do you hold your humanity? And your humanity is those moments when you're not exactly as much of an alpha male as you've been taught you need to be. You're not exactly as much of a whatever as you're taught you're supposed to be. Whatever those things are, where there's this kind of, you can't like land your feet on the ground of exactly like, oh yeah, I have the safety and security of knowing that I'm what I'm supposed to be. And there's some moments we do feel that, but there's a lot we don't. And then those are the moments where we need to say, well, then who am I? Because I don't fit into the paradigm.
Yeah.
And those are scary, but precious moments. And the more you embrace those, this is like a miracle formula. This is huge.
Okay.
The degree to which you honor and cherish those parts of you that I call core gifts, to that degree, you're going to end up sexually and romantically attracted to people who are good for you.
That's beautiful.
Oh, it's so deep. And the converse is true. The degree to which you don't, the degree to which you're like, well, I kind of love that part of me, but I'm also embarrassed by it. I'll show it when that person falls in love with me, but not till then. The degree to which you keep it as like a child that you're sort of embarrassed about, to that degree, you're going to end up sexually and romantically attracted to people who can't treasure you for who you are.
Right. Treasure you. I like that framing, the treasuring you for who you are. Can we talk? I know we're in the midst of a couple different threads, right? The main points, but I also am thinking about attraction a lot as you're saying that, and how you wrote about how sometimes our greatest attractions actually are warnings, right? I remember earlier in my dating life where I was choosing for that heat and that passion, and, had a relationship where it was super hot and really loving and great also, but actually fundamentally we realized after a little while, we were not a good fit. So that indicator light of, attraction equals a great partnership, that has become clear to me it's not indicating what I used to think it was indicating.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot to say about that. And you actually kind of like kept the thread and picked it up, because that's the second stage right there.
Yeah.
So the one last thing I'll say about that first stage about the core gifts is, and actually people can go to Deeper Dating Podcast and there's a free gift for people who join my mailing list, which is the section of the book that teaches you to discover your core gift. Great. And I'm very excited that a very renowned researcher is actually going to be doing a study of my work and how it affects single people and their search for love. And the thing we're focusing on first, the pilot study, is going to be the teaching around core gifts. So super excited about that. And I think too, in all of my courses, I spend half of my 6-month intensives are
talking about the core gifts. Wow.
Yeah, helping people discover them. So just to say that. But then the second stage is the stage of becoming a kind of student, a wiser student of your own attraction patterns, because your attraction patterns are like, it's like reading the tea leaves. It's like looking at the rings of a tree. They teach you so much about the parts of yourself you cherish, the parts of yourself that you don't, the kind of, people say, is there chemistry? And that's a wonderful first question. But the second question is, what kind of chemistry is it? Because we have all these different kinds of chemistries. And it reminds me of that story of the person, the mortician, who was asked, like, why did you become a mortician? It's nothing against morticians, but why did you become a mortician? And the mortician said, well, I like working with people. So, so it's like
one of the things I just want to say that I love is that it is so rare that anybody would kind of turn and look at oneself and look at, what are my attraction patterns, right? So even to name that, and then to not necessarily buy into or believe, because I'm attracted to that person or that quality, that's actually necessarily just good because I am, right? That we get to actually have this deeper exploration of that.
Right. And that like you find that you're attracted to a certain type that's not good for you.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, okay, so I'm just, afraid of intimacy or immature or just stuck. Well, the truth is we all have patterns. We all have attraction circuitries that are not good for us.
Yeah.
And we have attraction circuitries that are good for us. And we get to choose and cultivate. These are the things nobody teaches us. Like dating advice is always like, the big question is, how attractive can you make yourself? But hey, the deeper question is, what are your attractions like and how do you follow them? It's much more about attractions than attractiveness. And,
and how do you follow them? And then how do you actually make sure that you're following the healthy ones?
Exactly. So binary concept here, oversimplistic, but beautiful and helpful. We all have two basic attraction circuitry patterns. The first one is what I call attractions of deprivation, where I spent decades of my life, being attracted to people like so attracted. But an attraction of deprivation is where that person doesn't hold the same ethical values that you do, moral values, or they like you, but they're not fully in love with you, or they can never really commit, even though they're into you. They treat you well sometimes and poorly other times. And what that does is it triggers this incredible thing of, I know I'm not quite good enough, but I'm almost good enough. And if I can convince you and get you, then I will have what I need. And it's the most powerful, intense force. Harville Hendrix, a brilliant researcher, work I love, and I'm sure, you love his work too, because this is great. So he says that the people who attract you the most wildly and fiercely do so because consciously they embody the best characteristics of your primary caregivers, but unconsciously you sense that they can hurt you in the same ways that you were hurt, no matter how good your parents were as a child. And your ego wants to go back to the scene of the crime to finally be
heal
loved,
that
right?
And resolve that, right?
And that's okay if the other person is willing to do the work. But if they're not, you're in an attraction of deprivation. And
if they're willing to do the work, and if everybody has the context of, oh, that's what we're doing here, versus it's supposed to just be all, rainbows and butterflies and light and love and lust.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So when you pursue these attractions of deprivation, they're sexy and they're hot and they're beautiful, and there's somehow embedded in them is this fear that this person doesn't abandon you and that you could prove that you are worth them taking the next step. And it feels like heaven is within reach, but it's really the path to hell.
Right.
And, so many of us I spent decades there. And I have that circuitry of attraction. Most of us have that. Yeah. But there's another circuitry of attraction that I also had that I didn't know I had because it wasn't as immediately sexy, which is attractions of inspiration. And that's when you're turned on to someone. You're physically attracted, of course, but their goodness is what kills you. Their generosity. It kills you.
I like that. And I also appreciate that you said, this one can be a slower warm up. You may not have that immediate spark of attraction in the way that you do with the other one.
Right. You won't have that white hot thing where I call it the myth of lost love gets triggered, where you feel like, if only, that kind of feeling.
That fairy tale.
Yes. And I need this person to love me. I need them to love me, in a way that they don't. So an attraction of inspiration it grows in some slower ways. You get afraid in different ways. With an attraction of deprivation, you're afraid of being left. With an attraction of inspiration, you're afraid of being seen. The fears of really, because this is someone who could really see you. It's more scary.
Yes.
Because if they drop you, it hurts even worse.
Right.
So those are those two attractions. But when you make this choice, when you reach this existential point that you say, I'm going to close that bursting door to my attractions of deprivation, and I'm only going to choose someone who inspires me with their decency, their goodness, their kindness, their availability, their fierceness in life, but their presentness and integrity with me.
I love
and
that.
the way that I frame this is that there is only one question that we need to lead with in our dating life. And when we make this is a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
When you make this your one question, your world will shift on its axis.
Oh, I love this. I love this. What's the question?
The question is this: does my soul feel safe with this person? Now, you got to be attracted. Different pieces need to work. But if that's not your first question, you're probably going to make some really bad mistakes.
Yeah.
When that's your first question, you will be aligned with a kind of dignity with yourself. Yeah. You will be, well, there's a lot of good things that happen with that. Yeah. But when that becomes your first question, you'll make the kind of choices you need to be making to find the kind of person who you could really be happy with in your future. Yes.
And I think for some men who are listening and don't necessarily relate to the concept of soul, right? You could insert another word. Do I feel safe with this person? Does this person honor and cherish the deeper parts of me when I'm vulnerable or when I open up? Does this person hold space or, be loving and caring with me as opposed to degrading or rejecting?
Exactly. And in the places where you have felt like not enough or like too much, can they hold these places and see kind of the gift inside them?
Right.
And do they have the bottom line question is are you going to stick to your values of decency and goodness and generosity when the going gets hard?
Yeah.
Or are you going to kind of just become not at all as caring or good a person? And the people who care enough to kind of hold to their values, those are the only people you want to be with. Yeah. So that's stage 2, and that's attractions of deprivation and inspiration. Stage 3 is getting out there with bravery and leading with who you are. And then stage 4 is the deep rewiring that needs to happen when you do find an attraction of inspiration and you need to kind of grow sexually, grow romantically, grow intimately, but in a healthy relationship. And the wiring that needs to happen is a different kind of wiring for that.
Right. Because I can feel some of those places. I've been in a relationship for 3 years, and there are places, maybe 3.5, where it is, I would say it's a relationship of inspiration. And there are some moments where I just want to run. My wiring says, this is not safe. This is not where I want to go. But ultimately, as I look at it objectively as an observer, it really is safe and beautiful. And so a lot of men I work with have that fear of being, subsumed by someone or being left. There are all those different fears we have. And it, like you said, it's a spiritual practice that we get to work through all of these and check in to see, where is this fear coming from? Is this a fear of I'm getting what I want and I'm scared to be seen, like you said, or is it a fear around I'm being disrespected and I'm not being honored and held in that way?
Exactly. Which is it? And it's an art to learn the difference. And, just speaking as a male and about men, one really interesting thing is that on the hookup apps, and even not the hookup apps, but the swipe apps and, not just the Tinders, the Bumbles too, all those different apps, it's hard to find women and it's easy to find men for these companies. The men are there in droves. The women are less there. However, when it comes to platforms like
yours, the deeper dating platform.
Or all of those environments where men and women meet in a way that's more conscious, it's harder to find the men.
Yeah, the women show up first.
The women show up first. And the thing that you described is a very male wound place. And I know that it's what kept me single for decades. And there's actually, I gave it a name. And now I talk about this, and in groups of large people, 1/2 to 2/3 of the people raise their hands and say, I have that. I think it's more men, but it's a lot of women too. Yeah. But it's what I call the wave of distancing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And
I remember reading about this.
Yeah, that's that thing that you kind of were just talking about, that fear place And I know it kept me single for decades. Like you're with somebody and then all of a sudden they're really not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And like on Saturday, they're just free to hang out with you and into
suddenly
the
you're
evening.
like, I don't know if I really want this anymore.
Yeah, I can't breathe. And then these weird things happen where the person becomes less valuable, less desirable. You notice their like strange things that like you didn't notice before, like, oh God, I don't like her laugh at all. Or he has like nose hairs sticking out. It's gross, but you didn't notice it before they became really available. And this is what I call the wave of distancing. And when you get it, you should celebrate.
Yeah.
Because it means you probably have met someone who is available. But I know for me, that's exactly when I would flee because I would think, well, my attraction is gone. Yeah. A, I want someone sexier. And B, and as a gay man, for me, it was with men. I want a guy who is sexier.
Yeah.
Or I am just so screwed up and immature and there's nothing I can do about it. And also my feelings have gone and it wouldn't be fair to this guy to keep dating him because I have no feelings left and I'll just hurt him worse and I'll feel more and more suffocated. I got myself into this mess. Let me get out quickly. And that is what I did for decades. And I wanted love so bad, but I couldn't find it.
So what do you suggest? I mean, when I read that, it actually had me go back to my partner and say, wow, I didn't even say anything to him. I could just see the parts of me that get, anxious or feel like, I could just walk away and that would just be easier. And it actually had me really deepen my love and my appreciation for him. So that just innately reading about it and hearing about it helped. But for those who, they read about it or hear about it, they're like, okay, yeah, but what do I do now?
Yes.
What do you suggest?
Yeah, well, I'm all about that because it screwed me up for so long in my life. Oh my God. And, I think it's crazy how what might be the worst, greatest saboteur of healthy new love, we have not been given an instruction packet on what the hell to do about it. Yeah. And so I want to offer an instruction packet.
Great.
And it has 2 things that are things not to do and 1 thing to do. So 2 don't do's and 1 do. So here are the don't do's first. Don't flee. Do not flee. I call it the wave of distancing because it hits you like a wave. And when you're in it, there's nothing else but the fact that you just want to run or you have no sexual desire for this person or they irritate you or they bore you or you feel judgmental. When you're in that wave, that's all you're going to feel. But it's a wave and waves hit you and nail you and knock you off balance
and then they
pass. So you gotta not flee. That's the number 1 thing that you need to not do. Number 2 is don't force yourself to interact at the level of intimacy that you think you're supposed to be up to at that point.
Yeah.
Like, you need to actually give yourself breathing room. Because a lot of this is a deep fear. It's both fear of abandonment and fear of suffocation.
Right.
And it's
all combined.
all combined, yes. And it's deep, primitive stuff. Yeah. And you just got to give yourself the grace to get through it. It will pass.
Yeah.
And when it passes, your feelings will come back. And you will have a deeper sense of if this person is right for you.
Yeah.
So the second thing you need to not do is to force yourself to be more
to be closer,
sexual,
right? Don't leave, but don't actually feel like you have to go in closer at that moment.
Exactly. And even if you need to pull back, like you might need to shift the date from you're cooking dinner for them at your house to you're going to the movies. Yeah. You might need to do that. And
I think this is such a great opportunity for people to then be able to look inside and not make themselves wrong for the fact that we all have a degree of wanting connection and then wanting our independence, right? And sometimes there are these cultural norms of, well, once you start dating or once you've had 5 dates or once you're together for years, you should have this much time together or be together in these ways. And everybody's so unique and different. And so to get to know yourself in that way versus, like you said, bailing or forcing yourself in even farther.
Totally. Because the truth is, if you're in this intimacy journey, you're going to need to know how to be with yourself when you're not available for closeness, when you're shut down, when you need to move away, when you're afraid, when you're angry. Like, that's the meat and potatoes of this stuff, is that we need to be able to hold that. So that's the second thing not to do, is to force yourself to like be more close than you want to be. Don't leave. Don't go too far.
And don't go too
don't go too close either. Yeah. So those are the don't do's. And here's the one do. Remember what you like about this person and do stuff that will engage on that level. So I'm going to just give some different examples. Like, it might be this person has a dog and she's amazing with this dog, or he's amazing with this dog. So you say, hey, want to go to the park with your dog? And you have fun. You really enjoy that. Or maybe you feel like as the example I gave, I am so not wanting to have sex now, but I would love to hold her hand. I would love to hold his hand and watch a really cool movie together. I could do that. A stupid movie, a deep movie, whatever kind of movie it is you want to see, that I could do. The same thing applies physically. Like, when you're having the wave, you might feel like, well, I'm just not that attracted anymore, but I still love the way their arms look. I love the way his hair looks. I love her legs. So you just let yourself kind of think about that and enjoy that with their personality, with the interactions, with their physicality, with Eros. You just gently let yourself focus on the stuff that you like and you're interested in. These are the things when you don't flee and you give yourself room and space, because what you're having is a spasm of fear.
That's a great way to say it, a spasm of fear. And most of us have never been taught that attraction comes in waves, that attraction can come and go and fade and be hot in some moments and more mild in others, and that there's nothing wrong with us or wrong with our partner for that happening either.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. So, okay, we only have a couple more minutes. And is there anything else you want to say about, the conclusion of the book, or where it takes people to, or anything you want to say about your platform? What feels most important?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Okay. So I started writing this book single. And I said to my editor, I feel like a hypocrite. And some people wrote to me, because I was doing workshops on this stuff, saying, are you like the biggest hypocrite in the world, or what? Like, you've been single your entire life.
And you're leading workshops. Yes.
And I
got divorced as a relationship coach, as that was happening. So I can relate to that.
Yes. But I believed in this and I followed this. And I lived this, and I met my wonderful husband through doing this work. And what I want to say is, it's the most precious work of all, because it's about cherishing who you really are and becoming that being and offering it to the world. Yes. What's better? What's more important? This is the greatest, or one of the greatest, spiritual and emotional and personal journeys of your entire life. And every skill you learn will help you in your relationship. Yeah. And so it turns out that I had always dreamed of creating events for people to meet in a more conscious, inspiring way. Yeah. And wanting to do that online, but not knowing the technology, not knowing if it was there. So my husband ends up being an emerging technology guy. And together we built a kind of dream platform where single people can meet at events that inspire them, and then connect on the platform and do things like visit museums around the world together, or watch
online
wildlife camps together. Yes. Learn the skills of real connecting, and connect in ways that are fun and warm, because online dating is brilliant at generating matches, but it sucks at generating intimacy. Yes. So the platform that we are now just beginning to create, but which is living and existing at deeperdating.com, is a platform that is built to incubate intimacy. So Fantastic. That's very exciting for me. It's just another dimension where we're trying to live kind of the same things that we teach.
I love that, especially because when I'm working with men and they ask me, where should I go to meet women or men or, people of any gender, where should I go to meet a partner? I often hesitate, I'm like, well, I'm not going to send them to bars. I'm not, and there is online, but it doesn't always work. And so I love that you have a resource for this deeper and more authentic, people who are interested in that, because the people who come to me are interested in that. So to meet on your platform seems incredible.
Yeah. And I want to say to those guys, you guys are gold.
Yeah.
And there are so many women on our platform and in many other places that are dreaming of meeting somebody like you. So you got it made.
You got it made. And right, to realize that from the difficulty of online dating to actually, on your platform, men are gold, conscious men who want to actually relate at a deeper level. There aren't as many
women
out there.
So many women just waiting for guys like you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much.
So many men too.
Exactly.
And
right.
Non-binary folks.
And non-binary people, everybody. Right.
Yes.
And so, thank you for making this available for every gender and every sexual preference. And, that getting to the heart of dating as a self-growth journey and as a spiritual journey, and one where then you also get to be more fulfilled and loved in a deeper way.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you so much. And, if people want to learn more about that, they can just go to deeperdatingpodcast.com.
Great.
There's like a zillion episodes there. You get free gifts. You get the first 2 chapters of my book, which teach you how to discover your core gifts. And you can also go to deeperdating.com, which in its early stages is now completely free to use. So, awesome. That's for single folks. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.